The plot, both in literature, cinematography, and video games, had a key impact on the perception of the creator's work. Each subsequent thread brought the recipient closer to answering the questions that bothered him, which usually appeared at the beginning of a game, movie, series, etc. Certainly, the great advantage of the plot is that, thanks to it, the recipient can experience various events with fictional characters, which is just like in the Grand Theft Auto series. Therefore, today, we will analyze the behavior of the characters in the sunny GTA Vice City in a few selected situations. We will check how their fate could have turned out differently and what motives they were guided by, which consequently led to the fact that we have that kind of plot in this game. The first point, which really started the whole course of events, is the betrayal of Tommy Vercetti by Sonny Forelli, because, as we know, the Don of the Forelli Mafia decides to appoint a trusted member of his organization at some point. We are talking about the events of Liberty City in 1971, when Sonny set up an ambush for Tommy in Harwood. This in turn raises the question of what could have been the motives for this. One of these may have been a strong concern due to Tommy's growing reputation in mafia circles, so there could be a risk that the originally loyal Tommy Vercetti would suddenly turn his back on his family. An even worse option from Sonny's point of view was the possibility that Tommy would kill him in an attempt to seize power in the mafia. It all shows that Sonny had great concerns. He was afraid that Tommy might want something more and become important in the family. Sonny also showed a lack of trust, especially considering the fact that the two men had a long friendship. Sonny's fears completely blinded his mind. The Forelli Mafia was in its heyday, and there were no major problems with the members of the criminal group themselves, or at least from what we know as players. Then let's think about what would happen if Sonny was still thinking soberly and not making the decision to set a trap. Most likely, Tommy Vercetti would still be a trusted member of the Forellis. There's a good chance that the main character of GTA Vice City, due to his skills, could be promoted quite high in the entire structure. But more importantly, Sonny Forelli would still be alive, and the Mafia could achieve much more with a ruthless, but above all loyal psychopath on board. Who knows under what circumstances, and most of all, if Tommy would have ended up in Vice City, especially when it comes to why, in 1986, it was he who was taking part in the drug deal in sunny Florida. Another topic worth mentioning is the drug money exchange at the docks in Vice City, which, as we know, was quite brutally interrupted. Many victims were killed, both during its course and also long after. The question that arises after the ambush is, why was the transaction interrupted? One of the most obvious reasons seems to be a lot of cash and, of course, 20 kilos of cocaine, which would ultimately make more money. On the other hand, the mysterious Mr. Black mentions that the reason for the interruption was getting rid of out-of-townies.
Mr. Teal, your help in eradicating those out-of-towners was invaluable to business. I have more work for you with a more hands-on approach.
Of course, he meant the Forellis and Vance brothers, and this, in turn, gives rise to other interesting assumptions. It can be concluded that Mr. Black's client did not want competition from the outside in the drug market in Vice City. At the same time, Ricardo Diaz, the famous drug lord, is very active in this business.
Soon any mom and pop will think they could sell gallo in Vice City. What next, huh? The stinking mafia?
It seems that it was definitely Diaz who organized the sabotage in order to maintain a leading position in the market, right? But from the player's point of view, we are still not sure. It could as well be any other person with an interest in drugs. And, as we know very well, there were definitely many such businessmen in Vice City during the 1980s. Therefore, when discussing the transaction, there is no doubt that this one has triggered many events. What then, if the exchange went as planned and both sides came out of the meeting with no harm whatsoever? In an alternate course of events, when trying to break the deal, Leo Teal and his associates could die, escape, or deal with a completely different contract for Mr. Black. Then probably Vance brothers and Forelli crime family would start operating in Vice City for a long time. The Vances would be responsible for delivering the goods to the city, whereas the Forellis would in turn handle the distribution. It can also be assumed that cooperation would flourish, and the subordinate partner of the Forellis, that is, Tommy Vercetti, would not have the opportunity to step out from the shadow of his would-be family because he would be under constant mafia surveillance. As for the Vance brothers, we do not know if they would be able to get back on their feet and become a criminal empire like 2 years earlier, but we cannot rule it out. The question is whether they would even prefer to simply supply the mafia with drugs themselves, operating far beyond the city limits. But one of the worst things we think is that Tommy would still be ignorant that the Harwood incident was an ambush set by Sonny.
You took 15 years from me, Sonny, and now I'm gonna make you pay!
You still don't get it, do you? I own you, Tommy! Those 15 years were mine to spend.
Another extremely important and even the key moment in the game is meeting Lance Vance during one of the missions for Ken Rosenberg. This is of course strongly related to the fact that Lance also suffered a lot during the incident in Viceport, and he decided to get the people responsible for his brother's death. At this point, we know why Tommy encounters Lance. However, during the meeting itself at that time, the players are asked why Lance wants to mate with a complete stranger. Well, mainly because they have something in common. That is, a desire to find those people responsible for a failed exchange at the docks. What's partly good for our protagonist and partly bad is that Lance Vance will change Tommy drastically. His intrusive and unjustified claims to Ricardo Diaz, one of Tommy's new principals, make the main character want to get rid of Diaz and create his group while rebelling against the Forelli Mafia.
Hey, I've been asking around. It's obvious that Diaz jumped the deal and iced my brother.
And he'll kill you too!
I can take Diaz.
No, listen to me! I'll handle Diaz! He's beginning to trust me!
Many thoughts about creating his own drug empire make Tommy decide to murder Ricardo Diaz in the end. This is another groundbreaking activity. So here, the question is, what if Tommy Vercetti had been loyal to Diaz? In the beginning, Lance Vance would probably be beaten up to death in a landfill for opposing the drug lord. Faithful to Ricardo Diaz, not trusting Lance's gossip, Vercetti could continue to work for Diaz, perhaps becoming his business associate in time. It could also contribute to the fact that he would simply ignore the further search for the perpetrators of the unsuccessful exchange at the docks, being a successful businessman cooperating with Ricardo Diaz. Tommy would then probably come over to his side and help him maintain his high influence in Vice City. After all, it would be extremely profitable, especially considering how quickly the cocaine market developed at that time and how much a fortune could be made on it.
We need some drugs, pal! Gotta get on the old love fest beauty, you know?
Yeah!
Well, this is Vice City, man. What's the problem?
Love juice, man.
We need love juice men, gang!
It would combine nicely with Mr. Black, that is, the person responsible for the unsuccessful transaction. Tommy did not want to find Black from the very beginning, and what's more, he did not even let the Forellis know that he knew who the culprit of the incident was. This shows that Tommy, after some time in Vice City, did not want to have too much in common with Sonny and his mafia anymore, seeing only his own interests. Under all these circumstances, it is possible that an open conflict could arise between the Diaz cartel and the Forelli crime family. Eventually, Tommy would also become an icon of the organization by escaping from being a mob soldier to Vice City. And although it seems that his life could have turned out much better with this turn of events, there is a good chance that the hero would not achieve that much. Just look at this situation. Tommy had nothing to lose in the GTA Vice City original story. His situation was poor due to a failed dock exchange, so he decided to take some steps to change it. On the other hand, in a situation where Tommy would not be placed against the wall and he was doing business with Diaz, there was no need to take unnecessary risks, that is, trying to kill Diaz. Summarizing today's episode, it can be said that, although the plot in GTA Vice City is not the longest, the events occurring in it could have taken a completely different course. Going through these most important storyline moments, it is not difficult to notice that there are quite a lot of alternative events. In the meantime, thank you for being with us today, and we invite you to other episodes, such as those that are currently on the screen. Take care, and we will see you in the next video. Goodbye!